The following is an exclusive presentation of Access TV Sports. For over 100 years, Memorial Day weekend in Indiana begins and ends with the roar of 33 engines. 500 laps and 200 miles later, one emerges to stand alone when the dust settles. But today, 50 clicks to the south of this historic venue, a quarter-mile cinder track is home to a similar contest.
The Little 500 is underway in Bloomington.
Last year, drama came in the form of a final lap sprint.
And after being second for the last 2 years, it's going to be Kappa Alpha Theta with the Little 500 win.
Will Kappa Alpha Theta start a new trend as number one? Or will the newcomer ladies of Phi Mu and Melanzana bring home the first victory in team history? This is the 65th running of the Little 500 on Access TV.
This is racing country, and the riders are readying for the women's edition of the Little 500. What a day here in Bloomington. A deep and talented field that is wide open, and we wouldn't be shocked one more time to have a sprint on the very last lap. Welcome inside Armstrong Stadium for the women's Little 500. Rich Chalini, Pam Lobig upstairs will be joined by our Hall of Famer Hans Arneson downstairs momentarily. Pam, you're a proud IU graduate. You rode in this race. You won it a couple times as a coach. You were a race director for a handful of years. This is a big weekend for you.
Absolutely. I've been lucky enough to get to see this race from many different angles, and I can tell you it is no less magical depending how you look at it. It truly is the world's greatest college weekend.
All of this work comes a year's work run by students, but the philanthropic efforts and the pieces of it as we take a look at your resume, all the things that it did for you, it allowed you to come to IU.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't have come to IU if it weren't for a scholarship that was provided by the Student Foundation. And just like this bike race isn't just a bike race. No. All of the riders leading up to this go through a tremendous leadership development process. And not only just the riders, but this race is actually also put on by students. So everything you see to the logo painted on the field, all of the sponsors, all of the logistical prep work is done by students. And what it does is it really develops them in a safe space when they're here at Indiana University, so they can go out, have huge impact in the world, and then they have this incredible community and reason to come back and stay connected.
Great leadership opportunities, alums by the droves back in town. Let's turn our attention now to the race. This women's race has gotten more and more competitive throughout the years. We do have a little intel leading into this one. The spring series, what do we take out of these numbers?
Yeah, so the spring series are good indicators on what might be the teams to watch. So you've got 3 different series events, the ITTs, the Missing Out, and the Team Pursuit. And different teams score points, and then they come up with a sum total. The team with the lowest amount of points wins the spring series. And the events are designed really well. So the ITTs test individual strength of the riders. It's them on the track time trial by themselves. And then you have Missing Out, which is like musical chairs on bikes. So you've got the riders playing with each other so they can test different strategies and more how they can use the draft and come around in a sprint. And then finally, Team Pursuit. This tests how well the team can gel together, communicate, and ride.
You know, it's one of the interesting pieces of it. Is it going to be a dominant rider that wins this race today and carries their teammates, or will it be a more balanced team that comes away with the checkered flag? Our own Hall of Famer and proud IU graduate, Hans Arneson, down trackside. Hans, who do you like in today's race?
Thanks, Rich. It's great to be back down on the infield this year, reporting all the action. You know, it's no surprise of my teams to watch because you just mentioned about the strength of a team, the indicator of the spring series event. My number one team to watch is Kappa Alpha Theta. Not only are they wearing the yellow jersey of the race winner, they are the team that won the spring series event. You have to watch for them. Number 2, Delta Gamma. They're a very strong team, deep team, many riders that can pull off anything today, I'm sure, with the coach that they have. And number 3 team is a team of mercenaries, a team brand new this year, Phoenix Cycling. They have experience. They have a couple veterans on their team, and they have the experience of the Cutters coaching staff. 2 Cutters coaches and a mechanic working for them today. 2 other teams you got to watch for, Ski and Teeter. I've talked to the riders and the coaches. They're dialed in. They're ready. So I'm excited to see what kind of strategy plays out here today.
Again, Hans, so much about Teeter as you look at Hans' accomplishments. One of the great riders in the history of the Little Five. Hans Arneson has also coached as well. Now you've coached in this. A lot of strategy coming in. We'll take a look at the rules here in a moment, but this isn't something where you just let your riders go out and do something. You have to coach them a little bit too.
Oh yeah, apart from the training that happens all year long, lots of teams actually watch race tape, and they'll dissect what teams are doing what and how they played out, and I spend many hours studying this race. It's about the only thing on their mind from at least January on.
That is without a doubt what everybody told us down on the track earlier today. Exchanges, such an important part of this race. We go 100 laps. You have to do a minimum of 5 exchanges. They will do more than that, and that's a lot of times where people get caught up in the wash. Talk about the official bike. Everybody rides the same Schwinn bicycle, and you must be a full-time IU student with a GPA above 2.0 or higher. Well, last year we had one of the great races in the history of this race, Pam. Coming in, so much of the talk was about Teeter and all of their dominance and the things that they had done. But then we, fortunately had maybe a little breakthrough for somebody who you felt bad about the last few years, and it came down to sprint at the end, and it was magical.
It was magical. It came down to, I think, 6 or 7 teams on the lead lap, and everyone was watching for Teeter in the white jersey to come out with the sprint. And you had Akayo, Kelsey Tharnstrom leading it out the whole way, and then Theta, after getting second 2 years in a row, came from that second wheel and popped around to come across the line first.
Well, something that you have done as a coach, repeat. How difficult is that?
It's extremely difficult because you come in with the pressure. Before you're not really racing with a fear to lose. You're racing because you want to win. And then all of a sudden with a yellow jersey, you start thinking, oh, we're kind of expected to win. And it could change the way you approach the race.
Well, it is a confident group of riders that we visited with, and they are wearing the preferred color today, and that is yellow. You go back 28 years, it was 2 riders from Kappa Alpha Theta who gave women the chance to compete on the big stage. Back then, it was indoors on a tricycle, no less, and now the ladies who set the standard for this event are of their mind set on a repeat.
We had 2 women from our sorority, historically had been a tricycle race, and so 2 women from Kappa Alpha Theta decided, why not bring women into the race as well? So they tried to qualify for the men's race, and then the following year they were 2 pivotal players in bringing the race to life for the women.
When I was a rookie, I was told wear your letters with pride, and I didn't quite know what that meant, but then, the minute you get on the track, you wear your Theta cycling kit and you are respected. You are respected by everyone on the track, by the coaches, by other riders, and it's an incredible feeling, and I think we are all very lucky, and I think we've instilled in our rookies to have them be proud in their letters. It's a great feeling.
And we're coming down to the checkered flag, and after being second for the last 2 years, it's going to be Kappa Alpha Theta with the little 500 win.
It was just adrenaline, unlike any other. I don't think I've ever been so nervous for anything in my entire life. And watching Brenna come around turn 4 in the lead, I don't know. It was just unreal. I replay it in my head every time I get on a bike. I don't know about you, but
yeah, even watching the replays of the race again and again, it's like every time. My heart is pounding.
Yeah,
every single time. Yeah, it's great.
Get sweaty.
Yeah. I grew up in Bloomington. My dad was race director, which was what brought my family back to Bloomington, and I've been around the race ever since. We went every single year. My dad always used to say, there was this one day every spring where it would just be that beautiful day, that first beautiful spring day, and all the riders are out. My dad would put out his Little 5 flag and say, it's finally Little 5 season, right after the race. I was so happy. I didn't cry till the minute I hugged my dad, jumped into his arms. It was just such a special experience that we got to experience together. He didn't have to say anything. I think I ran and I jumped into his arms, and I think that was more than any words could say.
Well, when you have Liz Lieberman, you'd have to like your chances if you can stay with the lead pack coming to the finish.
Absolutely. Liz has established herself as the strongest rider through the spring series. She won the individual time trials and then also won Missing Out. I talked to Liz earlier and I asked her, what made you want to start riding in this race? And she said initially she had been an athlete, a swimmer, so she wanted that structure. And then I asked her, and then what made you get so much better this year? She made huge improvements over last year, and she said going through that experience of winning and feeling what that race felt like made it so much easier for her to focus and dedicate to this race.
Yeah, and one of the key pieces for the dominant teams coming in here is that you have to stay away from maybe some of the more inexperienced ones, and we've seen some teams get caught up in some pretty hairy situations early in the race. That's something definitely to keep an eye on. We'll come back and work our way toward racing here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. The weather is cooperating. It is a perfect day. The track is going to be fast, and we're going to get ready to do some racing. The 28th Women's Little 500 coming up on Access TV.
The Little 500 on Access TV is sponsored in part by B97, Blue Line Media Production, Canary Cycleware, and by Coca-Cola.
Getting ready for the start of the race here in Bloomington, the 28th Women's Little 500. Riders loosening, trying to figure out a way to stay calm before you race.
Yeah, you can't imagine the nerves you feel. You know, you think you're prepared and you're ready, but then all of a sudden you show up on race day and the track looks completely different. It changes into this huge pageantry. You've got people yelling behind you and the energy catches up with you. You know, this is something they've been training for a year and it comes down to one day.
Well, the Greeks, certainly, the fraternities and sororities, a large part of this weekend. And if you're not in a sorority, choosing a team name could be a head-scratching endeavor. Perhaps the most interesting name on the track today, Melanzana. What does that mean? The answer lies in the country shaped like a boot.
Four years ago when we decided to create a team, we had a few girls with riding experience, but this was the first time as a team we were all together. And we had to come up with something that really fit for us, and it was a bit of a struggle. Nothing really seemed to be as serious as we needed or as appropriate, and one of the girls had Melanzana written on her socks. And we kind of joked about it. We were like, why, you know, like, yeah, Melanzana sounds like a racing name. It's pretty Euro, sounds Italian. And we Googled it and it turned out to mean eggplant in Italian.
I think it's interesting when people are always very interested in our name, and then we tell them, and then I don't know, their reactions are always very different to the story.
Any message to the Italian people?
We like eggplants.
Yeah. Like some good eggplant parmesan.
Yeah, pretty tasty.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Eggplants.
One.
No. I'm gonna apply that one.
Eggplants!
We've historically always qualified well as a team and have continued to do well also in the race. And it's just a learning experience. You just start to develop that training. Your girls start to know more about the race. They have race experience. They do stuff in the summer. And just kind of all around, everybody's knowledge of the Little Five in cycling just grows. So it's just kind of a benefit that you just keep seeing our results steadily getting better. And it's just something that comes with time.
Absolutely, to start qualifying ninth, your first race and your first attempt, to moving up to second and then first, and just qualifying top 10 every time it's a feat, and we're excited about it.
Come on, Katie!
Some of the times when we're like, you know, fixing stuff in our basement or driving, you know, all night to Florida and doing different things like that, it feels a little bit, I guess, grassroots. But I mean, I guess we may not have as big of a support or as big of a base as some of as some of the Greek houses. But I mean, like, you know, that doesn't replace who we have. And I, you know, wouldn't change riding for Melanzana for the world.
A team that was 9 riders deep said maybe their most difficult task was picking the 4 women who would ride today.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a bad problem to have, really. So look for them to be a deep team. They've got strength across the board. It's impressive at only their 4th year as a team.
Well, you're going to need a lot of things down in your pit. You'll need, you know, your air pump. You'll need your wrenches. You're also going to need a wire brush because crashes are a large part of Little 500 lore.
Ooh, and you've got your first wreck. You saw somebody surfing in the gutter. That's not where you want to be on the concrete. SAE's down. SAE Team 4 is down.
Oh, and there was a crash in the back of the field. Sometimes riders just overlap.
Absolute carnage. We had a guy on his top tube here.
Another little mishap.
Not having quite the day they had hoped for there.
Oh, look at that, just get away. Some of the bumping and a spill.
Oh my goodness, and you've got carnage and cinders all over these jerseys on the front stretch. Luckily everybody's up and okay, but if you keep the gas on too, you can always get back in this race.
Miller not going to give it up. And you got a rack in the back, and everybody's down except the Black Key Bulls.
The Black Key Bulls, looking for their first victory in Little 500 history, are benefiting right now. They're getting the white flag and the yellow flag too.
The Black Key Bulls last year in the men's race, the one who stayed out of trouble and actually ended up being the benefactors of a wipeout.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Crashes can have a serious impact on the race, not to mention the lasting impact they can leave on your body. Many a Little 5 rider has a cinder tattoo with them forever.
All right, we'll go down for our invocation as we get ready for more pageantry here inside Armstrong Stadium. Invocation coming up momentarily. Riders standing by their bikes, and what you see, Pam, is pretty kind of shaking their legs, trying to figure out a way to stay loose. The last thing they want to do is stand around.
Yeah, and you can see we've got these 11 lines of 3 bikes across, and that's modeled after the Indianapolis 500, which is what this big bike race was initially modeled off of. So
and here's our invocation.
As we gather today on this beautiful day, let us first take a moment of silence to remember Howard Wilcox Jr., Chapman C.T. Blackwell, and Neil Kelty, 3 beloved members of the IUSF family whom we have lost this year. Gracious God, before we ask for our needs, we take stock of what we have. Before anything we pray for, we give thanks that we can ride, that this day is ours to ride, that our family, friends, and neighbors can join us. And so with anticipation, adrenaline, and joy, we pray that you bless this race. Allow these bikers not to rage against each other, but to strive with each other. Let these racers not get injured, but allow them to push themselves to their limit. Banish every fear and every doubt from their hearts. Allow us to see that the true glory of this race is not in who wins or who loses, but in the satisfaction of competing well. That the glory of God is manifested when we live life to its fullest. That every drop of sweat, every breath of air, every heartbeat, every push of the pedal brings us closer to our goal. Today we race. Amen.
Presenting the colors today, the Pershing Rifles ROTC Color Guard from Indiana University. IU's Pershing Rifles is a competitive drill and honor squad which consistently receives high marks in national competition. Be watching skyward for parachuters from Skydive Indianapolis carrying the American flag and the state of Indiana flag. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom and those who now protect it. And of course, we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, please remove your caps as you stand about this race course. It's my privilege to introduce to you two-time Grammy Award winner Sylvia McNair. Sylvia is a vocal performer from Mansfield, Ohio, an alumna of Indiana University and a part of our Jacobs School of Music. Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvia McNair. and our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Fans inside Armstrong Stadium waiting the arrival of the flag. We have two, one on the parachute, one on the foot. And as a rider, you're out there thinking, what right now? Get this thing moving because I want to race?
Absolutely. You've been thinking, I've been waiting, I'm ready, I want to get on these bikes. You can hear the crowds ready too. We've got each pit yelling for their team. You can see the way the track is set up. Teams have individual pits and their fan section will sit behind them wearing their colors.
Mostly cloudy temperature at 64.
Oh,
And
that's about perfect race conditions.
Now it's time
huh?
for your favorite song.
We're back home again. This is the song they sing every year at the Little 500. It's very special for Little 5 riders.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hastens all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon sends all its fragrance from the fields I dream about the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home.
Another round, ladies and gentlemen. If you're in the infield not wearing an official credential as a participant or official, please move to the grandstand and other spectator areas. Only properly accredited personnel now are permitted in the infield during the race. We welcome now to the stage platform, ladies and gentlemen, our Grand Marshal, Dr. Laurie McRobbie.
Ride strong, ride smart, and ride safe. Good luck and Godspeed. And now, the words we've all been waiting for. Ladies, mount your little 500 bicycles.
A reminder to the riders and officials, we'll have 3 laps before the
crowd cheers in approval, as now we get 3 laps to get loose and get ready to race. You look at the rows in this race, and how important is your starting position?
Yeah, you know, it doesn't determine the entire race, but you do have to be careful because from time to time there can be a big wreck at the beginning of the race, and if you're stuck in the back of the pack and get caught behind a wreck at the first lap, it can really change the way that you impact your race. And just some info on how they're set up, the teams go through qualifications to qualify for the race, and that's each rider rides 1 lap and they have to do a legal exchange in an exchange zone, and then by those times, that's how they're put in order into this grid.
The track looked good when you were down there earlier today.
Oh, Rich, there could not be better racing conditions. It is perfect temperature out there, only a very slight wind, and the track is looking well packed and fast.
The riders commenting how fast the track has been, and 2 more laps to go now behind the pace car. And oftentimes the start of the race with some of the more inexperienced teams at the back can be a little tricky, and you're talking about women who haven't been in a race like this and some of the emotions and nerves that can factor in.
Absolutely. You're going to have 32 girls in 1 clump, their wheels inches from each other, and they're so excited. They have more adrenaline. They could be riding faster than they've ever ridden before. You never know what can happen. They do. So the riders have track practice throughout the entire season, where Monday through Friday they come to the track for 2 hours a day. And in these track practices, they also host practice races to try to get the riders ready.
Well, the riders may change through the years, but one thing has remained constant. It's the bike. Here's Hans.
I'm with Steve Zimba, my teammate from ATO in 2006 when we won the race. He's mechanic today for Kappa Delta, and he's showing me the 2015 Little 500 bicycles from Schwinn. And what you have is the same bike for all teams. The only difference is the frame. Now, between the men's and the women's, you've got a frame that's 2 centimeters different. Otherwise, they're equal for every team. The single speed 46x18 keeps it consistent for everybody on the track. The coaster brakes are what we used to ride as a kid, having to backpedal in order to stop and skid on the track. Everybody has to use the 700C wheels. They're all the same size, and the 32mm tires are provided by IUSF. The flat pedal tires and pedals are also going to make this interesting today.
Thank you, Hans, and they're in that 4th turn, and we're getting ready
for the start of the 28th Women's Little 500 race here in Bloomington. Melanzana in the green, out in front early.
Yep, Theta tucked in nicely. Has a good wheel. Everyone's looking pretty safe.
And you see teams beginning to move in this pack. If you just almost relax your eyes and watch it, seeing riders coming and going throughout.
Melanzana's pulled off. We've got Gamma Phi Beta taking the second lap.
As a coach, and you won twice, how much did you strategize right from the start of the race?
What you want at the start of the race is a rider that's comfortable in any situation, because you can have lots of bumping happening, so you want someone that can take those bumps and stay calm. And you're not going to win the race on the first lap, so you really just want to stay in there and stay safe and let things shake up a bit.
Kappa Alpha Theta, last year's champ in yellow today. Now moving to the head of the pack.
You can tell they're starting off at a fast pace. We already have 3 riders that have fallen off the back of the pack.
And that's Ski, one of the more intriguing teams in this competition, now taking the lead.
Yeah, so Ski, this is only their second year as a team. They started from the ski and snowboard club on campus. They said, hey, we go down mountains fast, why don't we try to ride bikes fast? And last year, their first year as a team, they got 7th. And they've got a great coach in Tom Saccone, who's one of the leaders in the cycling community here in Bloomington, who has helped them a lot through the year. I would look for them to be a big presence in today's race.
I love that line. We like to go downhill fast. Why don't we ride around the track fast? Well, good for you, girls.
We've got Kappa Delta pulling the pack now. Just a little info on the jerseys they have here. So the same that they were able to line up in the order that they started for their qualifications time, they also pick their jersey color in that order. And there's a tradition for the teams that qualify higher to choose the solid color jersey. So that's why you'll see some of our favorites in Melanzana and Gamma Phi Beta and Ski in the solid color jerseys. And then later on in the pack, you see some of these multicolored, triple colored.
Heading into lap number 4, just underway.
Oh, and we have our first wreck.
And right there past start line, and there's
We've got Alpha Gamma
and yellow's
Delta.
out there.
Alpha Gamma Delta, one of the stronger teams going into this race, went down in this wreck. They're now, looks like about a quarter lap behind the pack. So something they can definitely come back on, but they're gonna have to put in a big effort they probably weren't planning on putting in so early in the race.
And a look just past start-finish line, and so many times you see the one rider goes down, and it's almost not the one that goes down that gets the worst of it, it's the ones coming up from behind.
Absolutely, that's why you always have to be aware and put yourself in a good position. You can't control what the riders around you do, but what you can do is put yourself in a position where you aren't stuck behind those riders and set yourself up better. We've got Tabitha Sherwood riding for Phoenix Cycling, just served a penalty. So the Phoenix Cycling had a pre-race penalty for not turning their bikes in on time. And luckily enough, they had a yellow flag come up, which allowed them to serve that penalty when the pack wasn't moving as fast. So what happens when you have a wreck and the track isn't clear, they've got riders on the track, they put up a yellow flag. And this says, okay, everyone hold your position, slow it down, and no one's allowed to pass each other. Once they get the track cleared, we'll look for Chappie Blackwell here at the start line to wave a green flag to tell them they can race again.
Zeta Tau Alpha rider down, being tended to by medical personnel. And
Kappa Delta, that team we were just talking about, has already lost a lap and a half in that wreck. That seems pretty unlikely to make back. So that's what we were talking about. You have to be careful for these wrecks early in the race. They can take away your entire chance at winning right away.
And let's check in with Hans.
So earlier today, I went over to the medical tent and checked with the staff over there. They do a tremendous job taking care of these riders every year. One of the staff members has been working for over 40 years in the medical tent. They've seen it all. Tim Steiner is also an orthopedic surgeon, and he just completed a 10-year compilation of everybody who's been through the medical tent. Some interesting stats. And over the last 10 years, there have been 183 injuries. That's about 18.3 a year. Only 3 hospitalizations. It's interesting to hear they started this in 2005. That was the year I had about 26 teams pile up on the top of me in turn 1 at the start on lap 1. It's not a good feeling. I know what it's like to be on the cinders, but these good teams will get back into it. And one other thing we saw during that crash was Phoenix Cycling took the opportunity of the yellow flag, served a 2-second penalty. They had a pre-race penalty that they needed to serve, and it was very smart of them to jump on the opportunity to serve it now. They're not that far behind anymore.
And now the green flag back out, and we're back to racing. IMU in front.
We've got Tabitha from Phoenix charging hard onto the pack. She's already about closed it. We've got Alpha Gamma Delta, who still is about a quarter lap behind, so they are not closing that gap as quickly.
Ski, Ashley King in front. You know, we've seen teams before on both sides who have rebounded and done very well in finishing Little 5. What are some of the keys to getting back into it?
Yeah, you've got to stay calm, particularly in the women's race. It's only 100 laps long. There's not much of a chance to recover, so you've got to stay in it. And you know, sometimes riders can feel the need to close that gap right away. And what they can do is unnecessarily burn themselves up. Whereas if you just stay slow and steady, make sure that you're tracking that gap, closing that gap, you can save yourself some energy that way.
And we've seen teams in the past do exactly what you said as far as continuing to race their race, and sometimes the pack comes back to you. Now we have some teams getting lapped on the field, and we've seen that before. You know, think of last year's women's race when there was so much going on within that pack. You weren't sure exactly as you were coming down to the last 10 laps of who was on the lead lap and who was one behind.
Absolutely, and this is something why the teams will have coaches in their pits that it's really important that they're keeping track. So the riders just worry about riding their race, and when they come into the pit, they can get information from the people in their pit on who to watch out for and who's in the pack. I've seen races where teams kind of slid in under the radar. People didn't even know where they were on the lead lap, and then they can be in the final sprint.
Yep.
Looks like we've got Gamma Phi Beta on the front of the pack, charging hard. They could be getting ready for an exchange.
Yeah, another rider out in the pit.
The strategy here is exchanges will take some time out. So the riders typically try to get a gap on the pack. As you can see, Gamma Phi Beta is burning off here. They create a gap, they come out and they'll exchange the bike. So then the rider coming in has an easier chance to get right back into the pack.
And there's the touch and the handoff. Eschbach on the bike now for Gamma Phi Beta. Good turnout crowd-wise and good enthusiasm in the crowd as well.
We've got AGD just about to make contact back with the pack, so they were able to close that gap.
Seeing more riders now stretching out, going for the burn.
So you can see after that burn, Gamma Phi Beta got their back in the pack nicely. Alpha Gamma Delta is back in the pack. And the reason they want to be in the pack is it's 30% less work when you're on a wheel because the rider in front of you is breaking that air resistance. So it really makes a big difference to be able to sit on a wheel. That's also why you'll see teams taking turns pulling on the front. person on the front takes the most win, but it's also up to them to set the pace. If they want to try to make it faster to get some of the weaker teams out of the pack, or if they want to slow it down to try to eat up some laps and save themselves for later.
Pam, you talk about some of the importance of positioning yourself as a rider. How about the idea of getting your exchanges into a point where they're as efficient as can be?
Yes, and definitely. In the women's race, there's a rule you have to complete 5 exchanges throughout the race. And exchanges can make or break your race. You know, this is a chance for you to get a gap on the pack, but this is also a chance for you to lose the pack and not be able to catch it back up with it. So there are 2 different types of exchanges you have here. One is the exchange that we're seeing here, and this is when the rider use the same bike. And you can tell there's a big difference if you noticed in those videos. Some riders will grab the bike and jump on right away, whereas other riders will run with the bike for a while and get up to speed before they jump on. And particularly with the single gear for the women, it's a bit of a harder gear. And so if they jump on before they have that speed, they really have to crank before they can get up on the bike. Whereas if they've got good speed jumping on, it's easier for them to get right up to the pack and stay at a high speed.
So you're more in favor, if I'm hearing you correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, of getting a little bit of a run up and jumping on the bike as opposed to just going from the still.
Yep.
The still start, sure.
Ideally, the riders would do this run before even touching the bikes. You'll see them in their pits take off and get to a sprint. Catch that bike when they're running at full speed. Take a few more steps to make sure they're stable, and then jump on and get right onto the pedals into a sprint.
Phi Beta. Sneshbach on the bike. Kappa Alpha Theta in the yellow jersey, last year's champion after 2 consecutive runners-up. Now with the chance to defend.
Yeah, talking to the teams before the race, Kappa Alpha Theta is definitely the marked team. They're returning champions from last year, and they're also the Spring Series winners and have the strongest individual rider in Liz Lieberman.
The team we haven't talked too much about yet is FIMU, and maybe they're this year's dark horse team. They finished 4th last year, trying to start a tradition of getting their house in the perennial list of teams that you talk about, Little 500 weekend, and we caught up with them for what very well might be their first checkered flag.
So for spring break, we traveled to Clearwater Beach, Florida, where we rode 250 miles, and then we just had one day where we rode 60 miles as fast as we can on our Little 5 bikes. We didn't do it on our road bikes. We were like, heck, if we're riding on Little 5 bikes on race day, we're gonna work out on Little 5 bikes during spring break. So.
I love spring break because it's so shambly and like, so you're like in Florida. I'm not a good booker at things. I didn't book the hotel right. And a tube popped, everything popped, everything was wrong, bikes are horrible. But we had each other, and I am talking so much. Can I start? Holla. Here we go. When we first got in the house as freshmen, there wasn't a team, which was like really disappointing because like half the reason like why I like wanted to go through like the recruitment process was to like be in a house that had a team. So like 4 of us like got together and like just started like training that year. While everyone else was like on the track, we were like on the road, like kind of like doing like first like bike rides and things like that.
You can see from like last year's race, we got 4th, and so we've been working hard this year. I think we have a great chance to winning the big cup #1.
Wow, I would freak out if we won. I just feel like that'd be awesome, and just like leave that legacy for FIMU would be awesome too, especially as seniors. Like, dang, that'd be awesome.
No shortage of confidence from really 10 to 12 teams that you visit with on the track. They were sincere in their belief that they could get it done.
Absolutely. People think that it come down to even 10 teams on a final sprint this year. They said the talent is pretty well spread out.
We couldn't get anybody to commit to, well, we know you guys are good, but who else would be your main target? And the answers were universal. It's like they'd all been coached by the same PR firm that
we're only going to worry about ourselves, and there's a lot of other good riders out there, and we'll see how it plays out. You're like, okay, by the time you get to the fourth or fifth answer, you're like, wow, you guys definitely do believe that it's going to be us, and then we'll see whatever happens with the field.
Yep. So we've got 20 laps scored now. We just had another crash. Took out Melanzana, the pole team, our green team. We were really rooting for them, the eggplant team. They're down now, and they are, it looks like, at least a half a lap back now on the... Here's a replay. Let's see what happened. Looks like they were near the back of the pack, catching up from an exchange, and they got caught behind a wreck. Looks like AGD was taken down in that wreck as well. This is their second gap that they're going to have to close.
Yeah, pointing to the left shoulder, and the coach signaling one more lap.
Let's look here if we can see what happened to her shoulder. You know, it could be her shoulder. That could also be a sign. Sometimes teams use sign language to communicate with their pits, telling how many more laps. So that could have been her saying one more lap and then I want to come out. So if you look at what's going on here, AGD exchanged. AGD and Melanzana both went down and they were together. AGD exchanged and they're now a bit back. When Melanzana exchanged, if they can wait and hook up with AGD, the two of them can work together to help close this half lap gap on the pack.
Mirza now on the bike. Here's Hans.
So Melanzana, interesting story about their team. Their coach, Huey, he started on the ATO bike team in 1980 with my coach, Norm Hoos. They've taken on a lot of the traditions passed down from Norm, and what they learned there is just about making positive memories, bringing people together, making a good family. Huey, I talked to the riders. They do a great job. He keeps them calm. And in a situation like this, that's exactly the kind of coach that you need. You need to stay calm and composed because you can definitely make up this kind of a deficit with a race where you've got 80 laps to go. I'm not too worried about it. I think they have the right coach in their pit for this situation.
It looks like Melanzana is not going to wait for AGD. They have blown past them, and they look pretty set on closing this gap.
Delta Gamma going to come in for an exchange.
We've had most of our favorite teams make their first exchange now. Phoenix has exchanged. Delta Gamma exchanged. Theta has exchanged. Teeter made an exchange.
'24th lap out of 100, and we'll step aside for a quick break. 28th running of the women's Little 500 is underway in Bloomington. What a day for racing.
The Little 500 on Access TV is sponsored in part by Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IMU Dining Services Sodexo, Lamar Advertising, and by Massab Criterium.
Back inside Armstrong Stadium, we'll take a look back to 1990. Third running of the women's race. First 6 races were ruled by the dorms and independent teams. Women's race in 90 postponed until Saturday morning due to heavy rainfall on Friday. Carrie Helmuth from Team Speed hopped off the bike at lap 85 and rode away from the field in a decisive win on the bike at 85 and out in front. And another injured rider from Wing It.
Got Wing It down.
Stabilize and getting on the stretcher between turn 3 and 4.
So we're under another yellow lap, and what's going on here is Melanzana is away from the pack, so they have to be really... Here's a replay to see what happened on the Wing It crash. Well, you can see there, coming around the outside of the pack, when people try to catch up to the pack, they can sometimes scoop in too early, knock shoulders, and it can take teams out. So being under this yellow lap, Melanzana still has half a lap gap behind the pack. And it's up to them to watch the pack and make sure that they don't let this gap grow any much or any bigger or make it any smaller. And you can see lining up around the track, you've got officials. And these are volunteers. This is part of the Little 500 community. These are people that volunteer their time to help keep people in the right place. You can also see the pack is coming up on AGD. That would put them an official full lap behind.
And we're back to green, and quickly an exchange for AGD.
So you can see the difference in the teams there. Melanzana and AGD were together. AGD is now lapped because they had that first crash. They already had a gap they had to close, whereas Melanzana still sitting a full half lap back. So they're not losing any more ground, but they're really not closing this gap.
Katie Reynolds, the senior on the bike for Melanzana, see if she can make up any of the ground.
Yeah. Melanzana has now hooked up with Phi Mu, who we just saw that feature on. It looks like they're working well together and trading poles. So Melanzana is getting a little bit of a break now. They can ride on Phi Mu's wheel. If the two of them continue to work together, they have a much better shot at closing this.
Kappa Alpha Theta. Gonna let AGD take the lead for this turn.
Another team we haven't talked much about yet is Alpha Chi Omega in the bright neon orange. They, coming back from last year, they were one of the favorites to win. They had the strong rider in Kelsey Tharnstrom, who graduated. And talking to AKIO earlier today, they said it actually, in losing Kelsey, it made them learn that it was on them and they were responsible for it too, and kept them much more focused. Going into their first exchange, they had a really strong burn. So look for them to be a strong team today.
Got the Sigma with a hard charge here. And with that, they'll do an exchange. Here's Hans.
Hey, I'm with my sister, Sonia Arneson. We're in the Gamma Phi Beta Pit team that she's rode for 4 years. I coached for 5 years, and now she's coaching the team. This is a student-run race, alumni coached as well. So I don't want to take too much time away, but Sonia, you've got an all-star cast of riders here. You're coaching from Chicago. What's it like to coach when you're not here with them every day?
Coaching from Chicago means I need to have strong communication with my team, and that usually is with the team captain. We stay in touch through regular phone calls, texts. We have a workout document where they have to upload their workouts each day. We just stay in touch through a lot of communication. I need open communication for them, honest communication, how everything's going, so that I know what to do in the events.
Things are going well so far. I know you guys are setting up for an exchange. I wanted to talk to Allison. Allison, you had a killer set just there. You rode 2 years ago, studied abroad last year, but it seems like you didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, it feels good to be out there. They said it's like riding a bike, not to be cliche, but it is. So it feels good.
You pulled a lot of laps. You were not shy about being on front. Are you going to have that strategy all day?
We'll see how it goes. Turn left.
Good luck.
Thank you, Hans. Good report. You said it was a family affair. Brother, sister, alums.
Yeah.
It all is tied together.
Absolutely. I can't tell you the number of brothers and sisters and families that have ridden in this race, and oftentimes families that are created by this race too. Many couples will pair up and create the next generation of Little Five riders. We've got Phoenix and Kappa Alpha Theta that both just exchanged and came back up nicely to the pit. You could see there in Phoenix Cycling, so they're an interesting story. You've got Tabitha Sherwood, one of the strongest riders on the track today, has lots of racing experience. She was with a team, Collins, and ended up leaving to form her own team. And they have a little bit of experience, but this is their first year as a team. And I think you could see it there in the exchange they had. They initially had a good gap, but then had a little bit of a rough exchange, so they lost a bit of that gap. So it'll be interesting to see, can they take the strength that they have but apply it to a race that they don't have a ton of experience as a team together.
Sherwood, quite a story last year, rode 79 laps. About the last 40 of them with 4 broken ribs after getting in a crash on the backside. Involved another wreck. She's racing today with a fracture in a hip, an injured wrist. Her quote, "Pain has become my friend." AGD can come in for an exchange. Williams off, McCullough on.
The teams seem to be sharing a good amount of work on the front of the pack. People rotating through, Ski pulling off, allowing Theta to take a pull.
A little wobble on that backside by Alpha Chi Omega, able to recover.
It's incredible to watch how well these girls can maneuver around in a pack together with each other. You know, they practice Monday through Friday on this actual track and on these bikes together, and they get so used to each other and being able to communicate through different signals and flicking of an elbow and really just sensing each other's presence. It's a big thing that comes with experience in this race, is being aware of where the riders are around you. You know, they could be talking about a variety of things, from, all right, hey, come up here, it's your turn to pull. Or they could be telling people, if they're wobbling around a little bit, they could be telling them, hey, hold your line. Or they could say, hey, I'm coming up on your inside. All different things. Sometimes it can get maybe not so ladylike in those pits when people get caught up in their emotions and excitement for the race.
Couple riders pulling through.
So you can tell right now that when, well, not as much anymore, but you can see for a second there when people don't necessarily want to take a pull, the race can kind of slow up. And when the race slows up, the pack will go, instead of from a long, strong, strung out line like you see now, where it's really safe, it can bunch up into a big pack, and that's when you see some of the wrecks happening. So we've got Alpha Chi Omega coming out for an exchange. See, look at that burn. That shows that they've got a lot of pop in their legs. They're sitting in the pack well rested, and they know when to use that explosion to come out, setting the next rider up very nicely to
Alexandra Kolar handing off Natalie Ellis.
Alpha Chi Omega will get right back into that group.
And Phoenix try to take a little bit of a charge, but Kappa Alpha Theta trying to stay right there.
And we've got Teeter is actually almost a half a lap down now. Teeter, who was one of the strongest riders from last year, has fallen off. And Teeter is back now with Melanzana and with FIMU. They're still chasing, so now they've got a little more help to close that gap. Got Delta Gamma coming through, taking a pole on the front. That's Kristen Bignall. She is their strongest rider, getting 5th in ITTs and 5th in Missing Out. She plays club soccer in the fall. A strong all-around athlete. Looks like she's following out that wheel, stringing out the pack. And the faster this lead group stays, the harder it is going to be for Melanzana and Teeter to catch back up.
Melanzana going to do an exchange. Get Lily back on the bike. Reynolds hopping off.
We've got Tabitha back on the bike for Phoenix Cycling. So she was their starting rider and rode about 15 laps in that first set and is already back on the bike. Interesting to see if she rides up to those 70-some laps that she rode in last year's race.
79 last year.
We've got Theta coming out for an exchange and Delta Gamma coming out for an exchange, both with nice gaps on the pack. You can see here with their pits close to each other, they have to coordinate coming in and out of the pack together.
CSF as well in the blue.
We talk about it in Little 5. Exchanges can either be ballet or chaos, depending on the team.
Bad ballet is chaos. I like that.
Delta Gamma is such a strong gap, leaving them with a gap now even after the exchange on the front of the pack. Looks like Phoenix is going right up to them. Well, these two teams are starting to get a gap on the pack. They want to decide to keep that going. Looks like we've got Theta and Ski quickly coming up to them. This is a chance, though, with those 4 strong teams. If they decide to go, this is their chance to really leave the rest of the pack. Oh, we've got Tabitha taking a pull. It looks like they might recognize they've got this gap and make it go for it. We've got Phoenix, Delta Gamma, Kappa Alpha Theta, and Ski. Foursome together.
Melanzana falling further behind now 3/4 of a lap back. And Phoenix is going to do an exchange.
Will the rest keep going? Well, FIMU is officially lapped now. They're a full lap down. In the rest of the pack, we've got Gamma Phi Beta making a run for it. And we've got in the blue, it's CSF. This is their 3rd year in the race. 3 back from last year's race, and they were in that final sprint from last year's race. It's cool to see them growing as a team. So Phoenix back up to this foursome we have now in the lead. Still maintaining just a slight gap, not even a 1/4 of a lap, but they're keeping that gap.
They're going to force everybody to chase. Melanzana in danger of getting lapped. And this lead pack coming up on him quickly. That's the team that had the pole position to start this Little 5.
Melanzana, that goes to show how much a wreck can have an impact on your race. You know, it's tough as a coach. How do you make the decision when you're sitting here? You have less than a 1/4 lap gap to get lapped. How much do you keep fighting, or how much do you decide, well, okay, we'll sit up, we'll get back in the pack, maybe rest, and then make it go for unlapping ourselves? Ski has officially lapped Melanzana now, so they are a full lap down.
And with that, Meersen sits up and starts to crank on it because now she's aware that she's been lapped.
Yep.
Hubrick's on the bike for Ski.
Interesting, she's pulling through there. She should know now she's a lapped rider. She might as well sit up and take that wheel and take that rest that she hasn't had the whole race.
A visit with Hans.
So a little bit about Melanzana. They do have a deep team. They put 2 teams in Team Pursuit that scored really, really well. Their coach, Huey, he raced Raytio, as I mentioned, back in the 80s. They were a lap down at one time. They came back, they made that lap up, and they finished in 10th place. So it's not impossible to do. He knows the strategy of how to do it. We'll see if they can find the right time to try to execute that today.
We've got the group coming back together now. So we've got Ski, Phoenix, DG, Kappa Alpha Theta, CSF, Gamma Phi Beta, and AKO just slightly behind, but all together there on the lead lap. We've got Teeter still out there fighting. They're about 3/4 of a lap down, so not fully lapped.
Phoenix now going to take the charge and come in for an exchange. Team Phoenix, you couldn't get the straight answer of when the team was formed. One member said October, another said, oh, January. Let's be honest, January. That's when we really got this together. But they're a force. Sherwood back on the bike.
22.56 miles per hour. Back on Katie, Team 3 is third. Fourth is Steve, Team 4. Fifth is Christian Stevens, Team 8. Sixth is Gamma Phi Beta.
Looks like we've got Delta Gamma and CSF setting up for an exchange here.
Lap number 51 passed halfway there for this women's little 500.
Great burn by CSF, especially after having been dangling from the pack there. Oh, and we've got Melanzana has wrecked again.
Oh, Melanzana having a tough day, wrecked just right near their pit. And still an injured rider down, trying to get to her feet. That's gonna have to bring out a yellow. Katie Reynolds for Melanzana. Disappointment continuing today for our team that was at the pole position. All right there. Alpha Chi Omega coming in for that exchange and sweeping right in front, cutting in front of Reynolds.
Yeah, we've got Alpha Chi Omega now a little over a quarter lap down from that exchange, so they're really going to have to spend some energy catching back up. You know, it's interesting to watch. When you see in the men's race, they'll typically have quarter lap gaps, half lap gaps, and close them. In the women's race, because they're riding a harder gear and at a lower speed overall in general, some of these gaps can be harder for them to close. And by riding a harder gear, they're actually riding the exact same gear, but for the women, it can seem harder.
Here's your lead crew, coming toward the start finish line, and the green flag returns.
And we're going green again.
Ladies in front, Steve.
A few yellows here today, 3 now, but back to green and racing. And a solid crowd on hand at Armstrong Stadium, continuing to cheer. Folks, don't forget, all weekend long, Access TV is your home to Stagecoach, California's Country Music Festival. Exclusive access to your favorite country music stars, Dierks Bentley, ZZ Top, the band Perry, Sarah Evans, and more continues tonight at 9 Eastern following the Little 500. Lead pack continuing to work, and maybe CSF, starting the day in the 8th spot. Didn't talk a lot about them, and they put together a nice race.
Absolutely. I was talking to them, and now they're 3rd year as a team. They keep getting better and better. They have 3 riders back from last year, and I asked them, well, what have you learned? How are you more prepared for this year's race? And they said, instead of just knowing how to ride our bikes, now we know how to race better. So I think they have spent that time watching race tape and learned a lot more about the dynamics and the strategy of the Little 5 and how to apply it. We've got Alpha Chi Omega has gotten back in that pack, so they're able to close that gap no problem. Got Theta coming out for an exchange now.
Delta Gamma staying right there with them.
That's right. So that's another strategy that teams will use. They'll use other teams' burns and ride their wheels out so they get that free ride to either get a gap on the pack or to make it harder for the team that exchanged to come back in.
Miguel Rogers on the bike, Cap Alpha Theta.
Delta Gamma with a slight gap on the pack now from having ridden out Theta's exchange. Looks like they'll keep a steady pace, make the group work to catch back up to them.
Ziegler on the bike, and she'll keep going for DG.
And there goes Ski to the front of the pack. Is Ski trying to close that gap, or are they setting up for an exchange?
There they go.
Yeah, and so having that little gap on the pack, you have to make a decision. Do I want to commit to this gap and try to make something of it? But what's dangerous about that is you're out there alone. So if you decide that, you're making the pole and you're fighting the win the whole time, whereas you might have a group of 5 or 6 riders behind you who could trade poles, and it's a lot easier for them to close that gap.
Tabitha Sherwood for Phoenix. Handed off to Clara Butler.
Got Gamma Phi Beta pulling again. They're looking strong. We haven't talked about them much. Could be a dark horse for today's race. Their strongest rider, Allison, got 3rd in ITTs. They've got 3 riders back with experience. Their captain, Jenna, has 2 years of race experience. And then they've got the coach in Sonia with 4 years of race experience herself and 3 years of coaching them.
In the official Little 500 rules, the buck stops with the chief steward. And for the past 40 years, one man has made the tough calls. But this year is Mike Howard's final race at the helm. We asked him about his legacy.
I rode for Dodds House in the 69, 70, and 71 races. Came back to Bloomington for law school. Coached for 3 years, and then in 1975, at the age of 25, was asked to take over the officiating of the race. Bill Armstrong was president of the big foundation, and Bill said, we're tired of hearing you complain about how this thing's run, so how would you like to try it for a couple years? And that was 41 years ago. Let's refresh our process. How did we do that? How have we done that? And how's it working? You don't fix anything overnight. The students are in charge of everything down here until they get on the bikes race day. And I think the legacy is just to have an environment where the riders and the participants feel they're going to get a fair shake race day. You know, all things come to an end. I'm 65 years old. They make fun of me climbing the scaffold, the guys on the PA every year. Well, you made it again, but it's just time. It just happens. I've been in the stands 2 years. Both were miserable. My first was my freshman year when I couldn't wait to make the team the next year, and the one after that was in 75. I was just in the stands, and fortunately, the morning of that race is when Bill Armstrong asked me to take this position for a few years. So I probably will not be in the stands. In fact, I told him one of the things I want is a lifetime infield pass. So even if I'm not officiating, I want to be down there in the middle of it. I wouldn't know how to act in the stands.
One of the many great stories here at the Little 500, and as he stands there on his perch, we thank Mike Howard for all his years of service, and we're under another yellow flag with a crash on the backstretch.
Yeah, an interesting situation. Right before going into this yellow flag, CSF was setting up for an exchange, and they had quite a burn coming out So you can see they've got a good gap on the pack, but then seeing it go yellow, they decided, okay, well, we don't need to pull our rider out yet. So they're keeping that rider in. And so we'll see what they do when they go green. Do they leave the rider in and work with that gap, or do they then come out and put their next rider back in and join right back up with the pack?
Kappa Delta down.
Oh, it looks like she is giving up a lot of her gap under yellow.
Leader in the blue has pushed into the color.
The officials telling AKO to slow down to let that gap grow back to where it was going into the yellow.
CSF in the lead. And under the yellow flag will step aside, lap 64 of 100. And we'll take a break in what has been an intense women's Little 500.
The Little 500 on Access TV is sponsored in part by Hannah Racer, Pizza X, Power Bar, TIS College Bookstore, and by Uber.
Back to 2002, it marked the third win in 5 years for the Roadrunners by lap 75. Only 3 teams on the lead. Kappa Alpha Theta, Kappa Kappa Gamma, and the Roadrunners. Roadrunners put Jan Wangren on the bike at lap 80 to finish it out. Poorly timed exchange. Theta fell off the lead lap. And it was Roadrunners again celebrating another Little 5 victory. We're back to racing. We had yellow when we left. We're back to green, and let's check in with Hans.
Tom Saccone, coach of the ski team. Brand new team last year. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm pretty new to Bloomington. I moved here in 2005, but I've been racing bicycles since the 80s. I actually did a season in Belgium as a young bike racer, and I'm the director of the Scholars in Cycling program here as well, so really engaged in the cycling and in the community.
So Tom, you've seen a lot of bike races. Last year, these were rookie riders. Now they're you got 3 veterans. They're riding a great race again. You guys were in it till lap 90. Are they doing all the little things right this year that you guys reviewed on race tapes?
Well, you know, they are, and a lot of it has to do with just execution of the things that we've worked on in practice, and not just exchanges. I mean, these girls are skiers, so they know how to slide, and I'm serious about that. They've got great balance, great poise, but what we really learned this year was depth and dedication to the program, and they're executing on every one of the things that we've worked on.
Control is definitely something you need in this bike race on this track. Tom talked about how every rider on his team has a well-defined role, a sprinter, and I'm excited to see if you guys keep it together this year to lap 100.
That's right. We're excited as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, again, you know, we talked about last year that we had the big pack coming down to the end. They're in lap 60, 70 now out of 100. Still have a bunch together, Pam.
We sure do. We've got Phoenix, we've got Kappa Alpha Theta, Alpha Chi Omega, Delta Gamma, Gamma Phi Beta, and a team we haven't mentioned, Crew Cycling in the pink, is still there in the lead lap. They've also are one of these newer teams that has come around and built themselves up, and they just get better and better each year.
How about that crew breakdown? 1 senior, 1 junior, and 2 freshmen holding their own in this race.
Another thing I wanted to mention about the ski team Hans was just down with, they use an interesting training technique called motor pacing, which is actually when riders will train to have that speed in their legs that they can't get anywhere else but on race day. What they do is they'll actually ride behind a car, a vehicle, or sometimes even a motorbike, and allows them to get that draft and have their legs get the muscle memory used to spinning that quickly. This could be a big advantage for the ski team. We've got Teeters still just over half a lap down, but they're holding that. They're really pushing to make that gap back up. at lap 70 now. I don't know if they can close it in 30 laps, but they're not giving up.
CSF continuing to stay right there on the lead.
CSF is looking strong. Every time they've burned, they've had really strong, nice burns.
You got the sense from some of the teams that they would be comfortable if it comes down to a sprint, thinking that their sprinter was the one who could win it.
Yeah. You know, I was surprised by that. With Liz Lieberman showing herself as such a dominant sprinter throughout the spring series, you would think you would hear some teams talking about wanting to break away and leave the pack so they wouldn't have to come down to sprinting against Liz. But people seemed ready. And, you know, some teams were willing to offer up who their sprinter was going to be, and other teams like Ski wanted to keep that up their sleeve. They weren't willing to
Yes, they
stay.
did. Yeah, that's okay. All fair on race day.
We've also got Alpha Z Delta that is there in the lead pack. Alpha Z Delta with Maddie Hayford. She's one of only 3 riders in today's race that has 3 races under her belt, making her a 4-year rider. And then we've also got Alex, who's got another year. So they've got 4 years of race experience.
Rogers off, Malcolm on for Kappa Alpha Theta, our defending champs in the yellow. So that exchange, you drop back obviously a little bit, but for some strategy as we're approaching the last quarter of the race. A little cool breeze coming into Armstrong Stadium, and I imagine that's a welcome breeze for these riders. Been a perfect day.
It really has. You know, so we're here at lap 73. This is when teams need to start thinking about what their end game is going to be. So if they're a sprinter, maybe this is when they make sure they pull them off the bike so they have time to rest up and be really fresh for the final sprint.
Yep, 74 scored into lap 75.
Or if there's a team out there that wants to be able to break away from the pack, this is when they need to start looking for that opportunity. You know, in talking to teams, very few teams have, okay, these are when we're going to put our riders in and what the laps are going to be. They know they have to wait and see what the opportunities are. But you want to have a rough idea so you're open for that opportunity. Maybe it's a specific exchange or a gap in the pack that you find yourself ready and willing to go for it. And you seize that opportunity. We've got Tabitha coming out, probably setting herself up. I would imagine she'd be the finisher for Phoenix, so she's coming out of the race.
Kayla Bull on for Phoenix. From day one, the Little Five has and always will be a student-run event. Although the excitement of today and race day speaks for itself, it also is a philanthropic venture where all generated funds go to provide scholarships for IU students.
500 has 65 years of history, and it was originally conceived of as an opportunity to develop the leadership skills of students. Everybody talks about it as the world's greatest college weekend, but what they don't see is all of the amazing activity that goes on behind the scenes and all the work that the students do to make this happen.
Good luck! Thank you. That was like a record. Oh, nice job.
It's completely student run, it will always be student run, but now it's grown into something more. Students now are acutely aware of the importance of philanthropy because it is fundamentally a philanthropic undertaking. All the funds raised through Little 500 over the years have gone back to the students for scholarships, not just the students that put on the race, but all students at IU have an opportunity to apply for these scholarships.
The Student Foundation is actually pretty interesting. It is a department within the foundation. So we report up directly to the foundation, and our mission since we first started back in the 1950s is to educate the student body about the importance of philanthropy. And so since 1951, the Little 500 has been our marquee event to be able to accomplish that. To date, we have given away over $1.5 million in scholarships and grant money to students on the Bloomington campus. And the number of students that have received scholarships is well in the thousands.
These are skills that will serve these young men and women for life. It's more than just a bike race. And I think that's the biggest surprise, I think, to most people when they see behind the scenes of what goes into producing this. It's mind-boggling. I mean, again, I use the watch as an example. A basic Timex watch looks awfully simple. Peel back the crystal and see what's under there. It's pretty amazing.
Another good race this year, and we've still got we don't have a long way to go in regard to laps, but we have a long way to go in regard to finishing a race.
Absolutely. We've got 9 teams still on the lead lap here. So just to recap, we've got Gamma Phi Beta, Kappa Alpha Theta, Ski, Alpha Chi Omega, Phoenix, CSF, Delta Gamma, Crew, and Alpha Z Delta are the 9 teams still together there. You know, it's funny going into this, we thought maybe we'll have 10 teams on the final sprint. Maybe not 10, but if all 9 of these teams can hang in there, it's going to be quite a bunch sprint at the end of the race.
Talk about family and the great history of this event. Chapman Blackwell, the 4th chap, Little 500 family, saddened by the loss of one of its own earlier this month, his former ace rider and Black Key Bulls founder, Chapman Blackwell the 5th, known to his friends as CT, passed away. Pictured here, 3 generations of the Blackwells who have been part of this event for the past 65 years. Chappie in the center rode for SAE in the first Little 5 in 1951. He's also the official starter from 81 to 2000. CT's father, Chap, took over for his dad in 2001, and CT Blackwell take his final lap far too soon, just 31 years of age. Things continuing to tighten in this 28th Women's Little 500. Bill Armstrong Stadium, fans starting to get on the edge of their seats. We go downstairs and visit with Hans.
We've got almost 15 laps to go. You rode a great missing out in Spring Series event, but you got 2nd place. What are you going to do differently now if it comes down to a sprint?
I don't know.
She's not giving away any secrets here. You have 1 team you got marked right now?
No. I mean, this is already as far as we've ever planned on coming, and I'm just happy that we're here right now, and we're doing as well as we are. Honestly, I don't have any plan. I'm just going to go out there and do what feels right.
Well, her and her team are in it. They've rode a great race. We'll see if the fireworks happen here in the next 15 laps.
Oh, they will, Hans. You can just feel it.
So Teeter is officially a full lap down now. They have been lapped. And a team that has slipped under the radar, Alpha Omicron Pi. They're in the white, the red, and the blue. Still in there in the lead lap, in the lead pack.
Kappa Alpha Theta. Remember, they have Liz Lieberman, the ITT winner.
Got Theta coming out. Whoa, Theta's got quite a gap on the pack right now.
Lieberman on the bike.
Not exchanging yet. Let's see if they're setting themselves up for next lap or if they're making a move right now. Got Alpha Chi Omega chasing hard and Phoenix right behind them.
Sky getting a little darker here in Indiana. Lights at Armstrong Stadium beginning to take effect. Lap 87 of 100. This 28th running of the Women's Little 5.
Looks like Theta is coming out for an exchange on this lap. That is Liz Lieberman in on the bike right now, so that's their sprinter. Interesting having her in at lap 87. Looks like to Abby Rogers to go back on the bike. Phoenix exchanging, Alpha Chi Omega exchanging. CSF is right up there with them, followed by Crew in pink and Delta Gamma and Ski coming up.
we had
Looks
our pack.
like Theta is going for it. They are not letting up.
Let's say we had our pack, and now it's beginning to stretch out.
Absolutely. Looks like Abby Rogers is putting the gas on. We have CSF paired up with Ski right behind them. See if they can work together to catch up to Kappa Alpha Theta. Oh, looks like CSF will be coming out for an exchange. So now it's to Ski and Phoenix. Ski looks like to be struggling a bit, while Theta is going strong.
Theta has sensed an opportunity to create some separation, and some of those numbers that we looked at in the Open about the spring series, you almost start to see that play out right here at this point in the race.
Absolutely.
Visit with Hans.
Abigail Rogers, she's a veteran of the race, and she's stringing it out right now. I love it. Kappa Alpha Theta is doing what I call creating the chaos. They're making the moves, and they're making every other team respond to them. I love that strategy because then you're in control. You know how your riders are feeling, and you can control who goes in, how many more they have to ride. Every other team right now, they're trying to figure out what to do. Should they rest their rider? Should they put in their sprinter now to try to catch? It's chaotic. So right now, they definitely have the advantage, and I'm surprised how quickly she has put a gap on everybody else. With only 10 laps to go, I mean, she could keep riding and narrow this down, but they're going to put a new rider on right here, it looks like.
Indeed they are, and Hans, that's something you had experience with, you know, as a rider, getting out there and creating that gap. You weren't one to come off the bike, but Kappa Alpha Theta going to get the exchange here and see if they can maintain their lead and keep everybody a little fresh. Lambert, the junior, now on the bike.
Yeah, depending on the strengths of each rider, you've got different strategies. Like, if she's comfortable riding 10 laps and she can ride that fast, she can keep a gap, pull away from everybody else. But what we often see in the race here with 10 laps to go is shorter sets, 2 to 3 laps all out. These girls are going to be going 25 miles an hour, topping out the bike, exchanging every 2 to 3 laps, trying to keep the pace really high. So the pack has come back together here a little bit.
Indeed,
we're going to see a sprint here at the end, it looks like.
And at that point, with the exchanges and just 2 to 3 laps going around, those exchanges become paramount.
Absolutely, and you can tell some teams will make an exchange that doesn't affect them much, and other teams can lose a huge gap during exchange.
Alpha Omicron Pi continuing to stay right in the race.
We've got Delta Gamma is slightly falling off the pack now. So if we look at the leaders, we've got Kappa Alpha Theta, Alpha Chi Omega. Looks like Alpha Omicron Pi and CSF are the 4 right there together. And then a slight gap back to Phoenix. And Ski and Crew.
And Ski gonna push right through on the inside of Phoenix, who's losing a little bit of their distance, and Phoenix right now falling behind the pack.
AO Pi looks like they have enough in the tank to go for a burn. It could be a surprise team.
AO Pi, Michaela Ramp, the junior, nursing major, this her 3rd Little 5.
Kappa Alpha Theta driving hard on the front. They really don't want any of these teams that they've created the small gaps to be able to catch up and keep this strung out. It's a good move on their part.
Kappa Alpha Theta, Alpha Chi Omega, CSF, and then Ski. 8
Looks
to
like
go.
Theta coming in for an exchange now. We'll see what the other teams do now when Theta comes for an exchange, if they continue to go.
Malcolm gonna get on the bike. Good clean exchange, and she's up and going.
We've got Phoenix and Delta Gamma about a quarter lap down now. CSF looking strong, keeping the pace up, and Alpha Chi Omega is hanging right in there. So Theta is now will have to catch up to Ski and then overpass Skis. This could give Ski a wheel to catch on to. They're sitting on AO Pi, looking strong.
And at this point, from everybody on your team who gets on the bike, they have to be at their best. Kappa Alpha Theta, last year's winner after the 2 runner-up finishes. Taking the wide turn. Chi Omega and CSF holding right there. Ski in the bunch as well.
Delta Gamma is falling further off the back. Phoenix still just slightly off the pack. We'll see if they're able to close that gap.
Sherwood is going to finish this one out for Phoenix. Does Tabitha Sherwood have enough to get into that lead group and force the issue? But if you're Kappa Alpha Theta, she's just sitting there waiting to get Liz Lieberman, the ITT winner, on the bike to try to finish this thing out.
We've got AKO and CSF exchanging now, putting their final riders in. Ski is sitting right on Kappa Alpha Theta.
Polar arm for Alpha Chi Omega. 5 to go.
Theta still doesn't have their final rider in yet. Looks like they've got Liz standing out in the pit. They're about ready to put their final rider in. So things could come all back together here for a bunch sprint.
Ski gonna take the lead.
This is tough. If Theta exchanges now with no gap, they will.
Indeed they do.
So that'll be quite an effort that Liz Lieberman will have to put in to catch back up to Ski. Ski is in the front now, but we've got Phoenix, AKO, CSF right there together.
Did Lieberman make it up with a mile to go? Oh, she looks strong.
She looks very strong. Probably calling out inside to some of these lapped riders to make sure she's got a smooth path to catch back up to that group.
Ski still in front, but with Lieberman, your ITT winner, she can sit and wait to make her move. Phoenix and Sherwood right there.
Looks like Alpha Omicron Pi is going. Probably exchanging to their final rider.
Only have 3 to go.
Got Ski sitting on a nice wheel. Phoenix is right there. Alpha Chi Omega, CSF, and Theta. All teams by now getting their final riders in.
Lieberman steering clear right now. Ulbrich still on lead for Ski.
We have 2 laps to go. Let's see how they set up for this final sprint.
Everybody inside Armstrong Stadium now on their feet.
We've got 6 teams together going into this final sprint.
Lieberman starting to make a push, and everybody's starting to charge, and there's a pileup! There's a pileup! Everybody
we have a crash
down!
coming out. Kappa Alpha Theta and Phoenix have made it through. It
And
looks
that's
like
it.
it is down to the 2 of them.
So it's going to be Lieberman against Sherwood.
This is a repeat of missing out. And we're going under yellow.
With a lap to go, a repeat of the men's race. And we're under yellow with a lap to go. And Kappa Alpha Theta has the lead.
Well, Rich, does this mean the end of the race when they come across?
Still in yellow, trying to clear the track. And instead of a sprint,
They
we
will
have
finish the race under yellow. This is the end of the race.
Oh, what an anticlimactic finish to a wonderful day of racing, and you didn't get to see Lieberman
And they didn't get a chance
and
to
Sherwood
fully sprint
to
out
sprint
the
it out.
final sprint.
What a loss for all the fans and for those 2 competitors,
Oh,
because they were 1-2 in the spring.
absolutely. Tabitha could have learned from missing out, had another chance to try this again.
And the celebration can begin for Kappa Alpha Theta under yellow. Those in the yellow will win another little 500.
Phoenix in second. It looks like Delta Gamma in third. Finishing a race under yellow. Rich, I have never seen this.
And sometimes you're just plain lucky because, you know, the reality for Kappa Alpha Theta is you could have been a wheel back of Phoenix at that point, knowing that this was going to be us 2 coming into the sprint. Right place, right time. And let's take a look at the crash that derailed the race and forced us to
Looks
finish
like
under yellow.
Alpha Chi Omega trying to push up in between. Let's get another look at this. Keep your eye on the bright orange. Alpha Chi Omega trying to come into that space, coming down on AO Pi. Slides out. Oh, and it takes out CSF.
Who had such a great race, and
So let's see the
under
finish
yellow.
here.
And all everybody's trying to do under yellow is keep your gap and your distance.
Yep.
And for Lieberman and Kappa Alpha Theta, they do repeat, although a much slower finish than anybody ever would have imagined under the yellow flag.
Yeah. It goes to show your positioning always matters. You never know what can happen in Little 5, whether it's your position getting caught in a wreck or your position when you go yellow to end the race. Congratulations to Kappa Alpha Theta, two-time winners. Redemption after getting second 2 years in a row.
Well, that's fitting. You're right. 2 years in a row, finishing second. Now 2 years in a row, winning the race. But I'll speak for all the fans and the race fans as well. Disappointing you didn't get to see Lieberman and Sherwood sprint it out. Here's Hans.
You know, this wasn't this race finish we were all expecting, but is this something you guys train for? You have to prepare for what ifs, correct?
You know what? I can safely say that we did not anticipate or even think about a yellow flag on the last lap. I'm honestly a little bit disappointed. I would have loved to have it come down to a sprint. I felt very ready. The team set us up to do phenomenal things on the final lap, so you know we didn't anticipate it, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be up there on stage, so I couldn't be happier.
You guys put yourself in the right position. You have to prepare for anything, be on the front on the last lap. Was that your strategy going into it, always be on the front?
A little bit. I mean, we had a bunch of strategies kind of in mind. We just wanted to see how the race was going to play out, and, you know, we would utilize what strategy we thought was most applicable.
Well, you did it right. You executed perfectly. Great job winning the race today.
Thank you so much.
Theta really taking control of that race. Starting with Abby Rogers, putting in that monster set, keeping that gap, shattering up the pack, making them all work to catch back up. And that's how you race to win instead of racing not to lose.
Just in front with about a lap and a third to go and a crash, and under yellow for the final lap and a third. And Kappa Alpha Theta, once again, champions of the Little 500. I loved her answer. We did not prepare for that at all. You just have to know where you are. But no, at no point did we ever think you have to be in front if you can on the last lap in case there's a crash. I love it.
And that is Little 5 for you. As many race tapes as you watch and as much as you talk through any race day scenario, anything can happen.
Well, I tell you what, that scenario now is going to be in everybody's mind moving forward for decades to be like, look, in case something happens, you want to be in front, not second or third. Get out there because the whole thing can be wiped out. And that's a piece where you think of that last lap that just wasn't enough time for everybody. And look, you have 1,000,001 volunteers here helping to get everybody safely off that track to resume racing. Not enough time in a lap and a third.
Not enough time. And you'll see this sometimes in packs when riders hear a wreck. They will stand up and instantly start sprinting, whether they know if it's going to go under yellow or not yet, so they can make sure to get themselves in those good positions. You can look at the Kappa Alpha Theta house celebrating with their riders. You know, this is something that's always been incredible about the Theta team, is they have wonderful support from their house, whether it be their alumni riders that still stay very involved and give lots of support, but then the house as a whole recognizing how much work these riders put in and really standing behind them and celebrating with them.
Well, more racing coming your way tomorrow. We'll get started at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 Pacific, the 65th Little 500, the men's race. We'll be back here at IU. And we can only hope it's as good as today. Racing continues to get better and better with each passing year. Hans, what a scene down there trackside.
Now, we had an exciting finish today with a crash in the last. You remember last year in the men's race, there was a crash on the last lap. Black Key Bulls won the race. They're in yellow. They have a very strong team again. Maybe they're going to win the race tomorrow, but who knows? Phi Delta Theta has finished second a number of years in the past. They're fired up. They're ready to win. There's a number of teams who could be out there. Cutters are always a favorite. Who knows? But I know it's going to be exciting. I know everybody's fired up after last year's finish. They all believe they should have won because of that crash. So we'll have to wait and see tomorrow, the Little 500.
Well, Hans, hopefully we'll have another pack in the men's race like we did today in the women's. Pam, you've been in that spot right there as a coach. What a moment.
What a moment. There's no words that you can put to it. You know, working over a year, working with the riders, seeing everything they put in paying off. You know, looking towards tomorrow's race, these riders, as Hans said, they've been waiting not just 1 year, but now 2 years, some of them, to get a chance at that final lap. And on top of that, looking at the forecast tomorrow, we could have quite a rainy situation.
Yes, we might be riding through some raindrops.
We might, and what happened 3 years ago with the men's races, it was storming so hard we actually had to pause the race in the middle of the race and then restart the race again. So you never know what can happen. Always need to make sure you're in good position.
Well, you're the race director for 3 years. You know, what would cause the race tomorrow to be delayed or stopped in progress?
Yep, lightning and thunder.
Okay.
You know, that's important. We want to make sure to keep everyone safe. Other than that, if it's just raining, the riders will ride.
Well, you need a good pair of goggles, maybe with a windshield wiper on them, to get through tomorrow, because that cinder will come flying up. True Cycling ran a nice race today. This was a very exciting race right up until the end, and just things happen when people are close together riding at 25 miles an hour, but just I think disappointment for the race fans of not wanting to see that thrilling finish that we were set up for.
Exactly. It's nice, to see the riders be able to give everything they have in that final sprint. But great race for Kappa Alpha Theta. Earned it nicely. We've got Crew Cycling getting their trophy. Expect not such clean victory photos for tomorrow.
No. Will it be a lot more cinders on the face of the riders tomorrow? And about Phoenix Cycling, Tabitha Sherwood is listed as a senior, but she didn't race her freshman year. She'll be back. She started as a history major and now is a double science major. And that group, Phoenix Cycling, that threw everybody together in January, quite a race today. And she told Hans that we're thrilled to be where we are. And they come in second in this year's Little 5.
Yep, let's see what Phoenix Cycling takes with this. This could be the exact motivation that they need to gel together as a team, see how close they were. And with another year of working together, it'd be great to see them have another shot at it next year. It's great to see these teams, even though they didn't win, still happy and thrilled with their performance, as they should be. That's what Little 5 is all about.
Yeah, and one of the parts that, so many of the people you talk to, whether it's a coach, a rider, somebody who's just involved in the sports staff, or the people who are in the house, and you see them all celebrating right there, they talk about memories, and they talk about being part of a family, and the takeaways that these participants and this completely student-run event are memories that last a lifetime.
Things don't go your way or things that go to plan, you get back up and you go back to work and get done what you have to get done. This can apply to many aspects in life, much more than a bike race.
Coming into it my freshman year, I was super terrified and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but now a few years later, to see what I've become capable of and my team and how we've grown together, it's been so exciting.
If you're an athlete who likes to ride, you learn how to do so many things on a bike that you never imagined doing. And it's a great way to make friends with people in the community that share the common interest in being competitive.
It's awesome to be able to go out and compete on such a high stage and know that your friends and your family, your classmates are all out there cheering you on.
I found a community within a community here in Bloomington, and within that community,
I have made relationships and enjoyed experiences that will last me a lifetime.
The executive producer of Access TV Sports and today's director, Daryl Ewalt. Today's show produced by Mike Ricci. Our associate producer, Jamie McClintock. Remote engineers, Dan Neighbors and Lonnie Thomas. Director of Live Operations, Chris Markwell. And for the rest of our great crew, and a special thanks to the Indiana University Student Foundation staff and volunteers. From our broadcast partners, Pam Lobig and Hans Arneson, I'm Rich Cellini. Thank you for joining us, and remind you to tune in tomorrow at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific for the 65th running of the men's Little 500. Let's hope Mother Nature cooperates, and we have another thriller tomorrow from Armstrong Stadium.